Hello and welcome to Karate School, a podcast designed to help you start or grow your karate school. We provide lots of great information on the business of karate, preserving your art, as well as fun industry news and some interviews. My name is Colton Woodard and I'll be your host. I'm a 7th Dan in Shito-ryu and the Vice President of the National Karate Kobudo Federation. I host a wealth of Shito-ryu and Ryukyu Kobudo lessons and content at nkkf.org. We're constantly adding new members around the globe and welcome you to join us as well. My father, Bill Woodard, ran a karate dojo for over 35 years, and I'll be using insights in this business model periodically throughout the podcast. Support for this program is brought to you by ChinaVision.com. ChinaVision.com is celebrating their 17th year in business, and they sell a ton of cool gadgets and merchandise on their website. There's even some karate targets priced under $20. Head to the podcast tab at nkkf.org, click the link and use code SPO109 at checkout to get 10% off your next sports or outdoor purchase. So, are you thinking about owning a karate school? Do you already have one and want to grow your success? This podcast aims to help any karate school owner learn tips and share success stories from seasoned professionals. We cover every topic from preserving your art to student enrollment and financial success. Welcome to Karate School. All right. So today we have a special guest coming on to give us an interview. On today's episode, we're going to be interviewing Sensei Bill Woodard, the owner of Ocala Karate Dojo and founder of the National Karate Kobudo Federation. Hanshi, Bill, how are you?
Well, thank you, Kiyoshi. I'm doing great today. It's a pleasure being with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show and dedicating a little bit of your time to share your knowledge and experience with some of the listeners. Hanshi, Bill, obviously I know you, but can you tell the listeners who you are and your history with starting karate schools, as well as some of your experience in the martial arts?
Well, my name is Bill Woodard, Hanshi, Kudan, with Kunibakai out of Japan. I started the Ocala Karate Dojo back at the end of 1985. When I first got into karate, I did not have the intention of being an instructor or a teacher. In fact, I was one of the last people that would want to be up in front of anybody performing. Wow. I began my karate career simply because of a knee injury in high school while playing football. So during that period of time, I was told by the orthopedic surgeon while I was still in the hospital that I would never play sports again. I had always been an athlete my entire life, played every sport, and was absolutely crushed by that news. So when I got out of the hospital and therapy, I turned to karate as my next challenge to prove that I was not washed up in any sport.
Wow, that's powerful. So you've been doing this since mid 80s and obviously dedicated a lot of time to your craft. How did you get inspired, or what was your motivation to open your first karate school?
Well, my inspiration was actually, as with many of us old timers, was Bruce Lee. After seeing the Bruce Lee movies, that's something, I absolutely wanted to do. And then once my feet touched the dojo floor, I was hooked for life. It's something I absolutely fell in love with. I began in the mid to late 60s, 1968, and have continued on until today. I still practice daily, and the reason I started my first school was I started teaching in my garage my nieces and nephews and family friends. They would come over and we'd have a regular class. Then I started teaching at community centers, developing following their clientele. I taught at several different community centers throughout the week as I worked all morning and afternoon and taught in the evening time. Opening my first dojo, one of my biggest challenges doing that was, of course, money. You have to have money to open a business, money for your location, money for your utilities, money for your business license. And so by having a current clientele at several of the local community centers and health spas, I was eventually able to develop that capital that it took to open my first school.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely answered my next question that I had down is, you know, you talked about kind of starting small and in some of the community centers, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners out there are in the same position, you know, a little unsure of how to get started if they don't have the money. I was going to ask, you know, when did you open your first school, and what were some of the obstacles you had to overcome? So, you started at some of the community centers, like you said. What was the you know, when did you open that first brick and mortar school? When were you able to?
In 1985, I opened my first complete dojo in Bellevue, Florida. And from that point forward, I moved from one to another, developing into 5 schools at one time throughout Marion County, Florida, and then continuing on, opening my first school in Ocala in 1989.
Awesome. Okay. And what advice would you give to someone looking to open a karate school today?
As with any business, needing your capital, I would say even if you have the money at this point to go in and open a physical location, get a gathering of clientele first. That way, that second month that comes around doesn't pinch your wallet too badly. Of course, it's very difficult initially to make money in any business when you're first starting out. But by having clientele before you open your physical location and then moving everyone to that location helps pay those bills.
Awesome. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, gonna ask, how do you feel about the direction that martial arts has taken since you opened your first dojo, or what's different now in the karate teaching industry than when you first started?
Well, when I first started, a lot of the martial artists or karate school owners, ego was a very big thing. In that period of time, in fact, during my first school, I received a call one day from one of the local senseis saying, "That's just what we need here, is another karate school." And instead of welcome, it began as a competition.
You want to fight?
Very first moment. So after that call, I decided to really expand my karate and the direction I was taking my individual school. Direction that I've seen everything going at that period of time was every school out there had the word karate as their signage. Whether they taught taekwondo, tang soo do, kung fu, it didn't matter. Everything said karate. I decided to take the path of traditional karate and teach everything as it was passed down from the originators. And in fact, that was one of the reasons I started going to Japan and to Okinawa, to make sure what I was teaching was the most legitimate martial available anywhere.
Well, that's awesome. That's definitely awesome, and obviously it worked out for you. Um, and that's crazy. That I mean, that's very aggressive. I can't believe that somebody in your town actually called your school and said, "Hey, yeah, can't believe you're opening karate school here." Wow. So, do you feel like it's better to teach sport karate or traditional karate? You kind of said that your focus was on the traditional karate. If you were to go back and do it again, would you focus more on kind of the, you know, we just had karate in the Olympics for the first time. Everything's kind of been headed towards there, but then we also have that traditional Okinawan aspect of it and keeping it strict and traditional. So, what are your thoughts on teaching karate? Do you feel like, you know, people today should focus more on the sport or focus on the traditional?
Well, the sport karate is, very exciting. Myself being an athlete and being told I could not perform athletically, I took up competition from the very beginning. I always looked in my competition at those that I felt were performing at a higher level than I was. They were succeeding more than me. This added to my success in competition, and ended up with myself and my students winning, competitions all over the globe. When I think of, the traditional aspect of karate, I think of the morals and values that comes along with maintaining something or preserving something that has been passed down. So during my teaching, I would always teach traditional karate, the way that I was taught, the way that it was originated and originally meant to be taught, including all of the kata. Many people think that the kata was useless as far as fighting and things like that. Well, I have found that the kata, once you get into it, allows one to better themselves with their technique, allows one to better themselves mentally and spiritually as well, while they're maintaining that tradition of something from the past and preserving it, kind of like, preserving a dinosaur and keeping it from being lost in the fog of the sport karate. Now, the sport karate, we did that extracurricularly. When I taught for competition, we practiced on the weekend. We practiced after classes. This was something that if you wanted to be one of the best, you had to train harder and longer than anyone else. So I would try to instill that in my students, and we would stay there and train together. I was never the kind of instructor in my competition years that would just stand there with my arms folded and tell people what to do. I would be out there with them on the floor, performing right along with them, trying to show them how I wanted them to perform. That way, they're not only doing the technique, they're seeing the technique performed as they learn it for competition.
Absolutely.
So, as I summarize that, I say the traditional karate and the Kobudo, teach that in your classes. The sport aspect, which is the fun part. Teach that extracurricularly for those that want to go above and beyond.
Fantastic. Yeah, I definitely can see that. And it gives people an option to kind of do both instead of either or. That's great that, you're offering both. There's nothing wrong with doing sport karate. There's nothing wrong with doing traditional karate. And you definitely made a way for people to enjoy both of those, which is awesome, and do them successfully. So you've been doing karate for, 35, 40 years now. What was the moment that made you realize, or when did you realize you were going to focus on teaching karate?
Well, I actually have been doing the karate for almost 50 years. When I decided to just focus on the karate, was shortly after my injury to my knee, and therefore I put everything aside, the basketball, the baseball, football, everything went to the side, and the karate kind of consumed me. When you get involved in, especially the traditional aspect and the research of it, it gets very consuming, and there is so much to learn that you can't absorb it all. So that's pretty much how, the fire got started, and just wanted to learn more and more and more. And, that brings us up to today when, I do the karate, the kobudo, the iaido, the goshindo, as part of my daily regimen.
That's awesome. Well, great. I really appreciate you spending a couple minutes getting on here and sharing your knowledge. I feel like we're going to catch up and do this again here in the future. Hanshi, if any potential karate school owners want to reach you about booking a seminar or possibly some business coaching, what is the best method to do so?
I can be reached through this website, the nkkf.org site, at any time. Try to answer as quickly as possible, but I get a lot of messages on there. Sometimes I get a little bogged down because I go in depth and things. A lot of people ask me specific questions on training or seminars. I've done the seminars all around the globe. So they can always contact me through the website, nkkf.org, which I founded in 1992.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Hanshi. And if you guys enjoyed today's podcast, or if you're a karate instructor that would like to share some of your knowledge and experience, go ahead and email us at hanbu@nkkf.org, and we'll go ahead and set you up with a way to share your story as well. If you guys are interested in learning online karate lessons, or broadening your knowledge with the Kobudo or the Iaido, you can head over and use the code PODCAST when you sign up at nkkf.org to save 50% on your monthly membership. We have a wealth of knowledge on there and would love to share that with you as well. If you're interested in hosting a seminar with Hanshi Bill, feel free to send us an email and we'll get you set up. Well, thanks again for listening. This has been Karate School. I hope you found this informative, and keep on going. If you're planning on opening that karate school here in the future and you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the show notes and we will answer them live on the next episode. Until next time, this is Kiyoshi Colton. Oos.